I know we like to be punctual with both start times and end times.
Okay, let's see. So, a couple questions in the chat. Kevin inquiring if we're recording this, and yes, we are. We're really happy that though we like to have people here live so they can interact, these do get recorded and will make their way onto YouTube, ultimately at Mission Impact Strategies. So, if you're not following us there, please do. We're going to have these impact labs and also all kinds of other great content as time goes on.
Excellent. Well, Clay, with that, I hope everyone is caffeinated up because we're ready to rock with our second Impact Lab. Good morning, everyone. We are grateful that you've joined us. Our Impact Labs are meant to be as useful and as practically helpful to you, our audience, as possible. This is our second in a monthly series on different topics spanning the worlds of communication, branding, philanthropy, community relations, sustainability, and leadership in general. And your time is valuable, so we will get going with media and messaging and changing times. This is something that is extremely relevant to whether you're leading a nonprofit, you're a corporate communicator, a public sector official shaping public opinion. If you're in that space, this is going to be an important topic. And so we're going to be bouncing around, digging in. But the most important thing, above all, we have plenty to say, but our time is best spent when we're addressing your specific interests, your specific questions. And so that chat is live. I think Amy Armstrong from our team is going to be monitoring it. We're going to try to hit as many questions as possible, so keep them coming. And with that, just a little shameless plug. We Mission Impact Strategies are a team of advisors. In addition to being extremely fun to work with, we are as passionate as they come in helping organizations amplify their impact and influence. We all have 20 to 25 years experience in philanthropy, corporate affairs, running corporate foundations, beginning and launching hundreds of nonprofits, a wealth of wisdom coming from our group, and this is what we love to do. It's not a job; it's a calling. And this just kind of before we get going, just because we want you to know who we are personally. Alex Price, I'm the founder of Mission Impact Strategies. I come from about 20 years of corporate philanthropy, a lot of South Florida based organizations like Office Depot, ADT, Comcast, Burlington. Even started my career working for Mayor Bloomberg, and I'm a huge fan of his, so I always like to kind of throw that out there. That's where I cut my teeth in the big city way back in the day. And with that, Amy, if you would just say a little hello.
Good morning, everyone. My background is about 20 years off and on in nonprofit and for-profit work. My earlier days, I started off in profit and wanted to do some impactful work, which led me into Clean the World. I did some work with them and have worked in marketing, community relations across several different organizations. So looking forward to meeting all of you today.
And Mr. Andre Bailey.
I had to unmute myself there. I'm Andre Bailey. I've worked with and know many of you on the webinar through previous projects I've done on homelessness, poverty, the drug overdose crisis, opioid crisis, and just excited to be here today.
Thanks, Andre. Mr. Clay Lewis Ferreira.
Hey everybody, wonderful to be here again in our second Impact Lab. I'm Clayton Lewis Ferrara. I'm a biologist and involved for over 2 decades now. All kinds of things from organizations at the forefront of sustainability that handle many of these issues globally, but also I have a passion for launching new nonprofit organizations. I've helped launch over 200 since 2009, and many of the things that we talk about here at these impact labs are so important for organizations, whether they're startups or whether they're seasoned organizations. So I love digging into this stuff and really sharing some great stories from the nonprofit field. So it's really wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you, Clay. So our outside celebrity guest is our friend, and industry rock star, Amy Fetterman. We're going to be spending time in the second half of this program, really digging in with Amy. But Amy, if you want to say a little hello.
Sure, I feel so honored to be among this esteemed panel, but I'm excited about it. I was really intrigued by the topic, which obviously all of us in this industry have a lot to say on, but I'm excited to share some of my thoughts on that too. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We have Tamara from our team, Tamara Demko. I don't know, Tamara, are you able to pop in and just say a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara Demko. I'm the newest member of Mission Impact Strategies. Very excited to be here. I bring more than 25 years of experience across law, nursing, and public health. Love working with teams and organizations in leadership, communications, advocacy, and strategy. And I've had the honor of working with the state of Florida and nonprofits such as the National Association for Chronic Disease Directors and Florida Tax Watch. Very excited for this Impact Lab.
And Tamara, we're just thrilled to have you on the team. Your video had fallen off of my monitor. That was my, another tech fail. We've all been doing this for a half a decade. We That should never happen, but every webinar that tends to happen. But well, we wanted to start out with a question. So what has changed in the world of media messaging? And if I had to boil it down to a single word, I might just say everything, and that's a little hyperbole. Of course, not everything has changed, but a whole lot has changed. Just in the last 5 years, a lot of us started our career. I mean, I started my career 20, 25 years ago when communication was really simple. If you're an organization and you want to build a brand and get a message out, launch a product, or spread a social message, it was a pretty simple playbook. And now you've kind of thrown a lot of that, those old ways out the door. That's been changing for a long time, but I think in 2025 we can say it's pretty definitive. Traditional media is still important to some key stakeholder groups, but the utilization of traditional media and the trust in traditional media is probably at an all-time ebb. The fractured nature of communication, people are on such diversified and niche channels and properties. I think that it's safe to say that I know when I started my career, it was a premium on slick, sophisticated, well-polished communicators, whether it was from a politician, a nonprofit CEO, or a for-profit CEO, and that's definitely not the case anymore. Audiences feel very differently about that flavor of communication, and authenticity and being real is very much rewarded. And so, we could go on and on to talk about the things that have changed, and you're feeling that in your organizations all the time. And so, really, when everything has changed, what on earth do you need to do? Um, you know, we boil it down to kind of four kind of core areas. And there's a universe of things underneath each of these four. That would be engaging your audience where they are now. And you got to really know your audience and know where they are now, how they're absorbing media, where they're at. And then it's really about building trust. And trust is at a premium right now. When trust is hard to come by in our culture, there's a premium on it. And so it's not just about visibility and awareness. It's really about establishing credibility as an organization. And it's not easy to do. It's about inspiring action. So it's not just about impressions and some of those things. It's really about, was your communication able to drive growth, sales if you're a nonprofit, donor action if you're a public sector leader? Did you shift in a measurable way public opinion? It's got to be action oriented. And then, of course, measurement. Measurement's always been important, but I think there's a premium on it now. Always a challenge for communicators, for sure, and philanthropists alike to measure the impact. But it's got to be tied to organizational outcomes. Are your efforts as a communicator, whatever your organization is, are you able to tie those efforts and those actions to actual positive outcomes for your organization? And so you kind of start there and say, okay, great, that sounds all fine and good. We need to do those four things and we need to do them great. But how the heck would you do that? And this is where the conversation gets good because it's all about the how. I think at a very high level, we would say you need a targeted strategy and an integrated strategy. And if you do that in a scientific way, in a very scientific way, you really can achieve a multiplier effect with all that you're doing in your communication. That is having your communication not just doing all the things, because you know you can't do all things, and nor should you. That's not a smart strategy. But you need to do the right things and to do them in the right order and in the right cadence and in the right way, to where your communication touch points and what you're doing with media is actually uh, where the sum is greater, or I guess the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We call that the multiplier effect. And I kind of want to stop there. Come in, Amy, through the chat. Please let us know, because I want to kind of pause there, because we're gonna I want to make sure that everyone kind of feels that we're whether you're in, depending on the organization you're in or the sector you're in, that we're tailoring this in the right way. Um, so let's first talk about, before we get into, we really want to unpack what does it mean to be integrated, because I'll tell you, it ever since I've been in this world, every organization says, yes, we integrate our communication. And truthfully, very few really do. Um, Everyone's doing social media, everyone's paying for advertising, everyone's trying to do PR and to have beautiful content on their own, but they're kind of doing it in silos and they're driving their own linear path. And it's not, in that case, doing the hard work for you. This is, we talk about kind of the whole media landscape. We break it down internally at Mission Impact into these five areas. And some of you might be familiar with the peso model. That's really famous. We love the peso model. That is P for paid, E for earned, S for shared, and O for owned. We add in person because we work with a lot of organizations where in-person presence is really, really important. So we bring that into the fold. And so these are all really important on their own, and they can work magically when woven together in very, very specific ways. But I think, Clay, before we start, I want to kind of pivot to you, because I want to just make sure that the audience kind of knows what each of these five is in a modern context, because these things have essentially been around, except for shared media. Would you believe we're 20 years in now to mainstream social media? But all these things have existed for a long time, but there's new modern definitions. And I think it'd be good for everyone to kind of have a unified definition of that. And I'd love to start with owned media. Clay, you have launched over 200 nonprofits and established, I'm sure, web presence and branding and identity for those 200 plus nonprofits. We always say, Clay, that your media communication strategy has to start with own, because that's the one channel, the one category
You
you
own.
actually fully control. And if you would kind of speak to the importance of a communication strategy, starting with own media, and then what is own media?
Of course, absolutely. Well, thank you, Alex. So, this really goes to the heart of the question that when you have a nonprofit organization, there's so many discussions that happen internally with your team, talking about how you're going to achieve your goals, what those goals are, coming up with even things as embryonic as the mission of the organization and its vision and the types of programs it's going to engage in, or where it will solicit funding, or things like that. But the time comes where you then are ready to take these conversations and have them no longer be internal. And ultimately, at the heart of this is all about how nonprofit organizations communicate and how they effectively communicate who they are and how they reach their people. And what I mean by that is that could be donors, of course, which are very important, but also people who may need their services. And let's not forget that all of our organizations out there need great volunteers, great new board members, great new advisory board members. So this type of communication is incredibly important. And it really starts with owned media, because after all, with owned media, you own those channels, right? And traditionally, I think owned media took the form of a newsletter or a flyer or a mailer or a postcard. Man, I still have in my archives letters from newsletters from Audubon Society or Sierra Club from the 1950s, right? And once upon a time, that was how you reached your audience that would subscribe to you. Now things are so different, right? We all have supercomputers in our pockets, right? So all of the different brands of social media are a great example of owned media in the sense that the nonprofit owns those channels, meaning that they're in control of them. So if you send out an e-newsletter through MailChimp, if you make posts on Facebook, if you create a TikTok channel and have your interns run it, these are all examples of media essentially that you are controlling and serves as kind of the first stage of your communication because ultimately you, as the nonprofit, get to decide what you're putting out there to interact with the rest of the world. And it can be very effective to then garnering these other types of media that create an integrated, holistic model.
Boy, that is striking when you're talking about an organization. You might say an organization as recently as call it the early to mid 90s, their own media might be their annual report and a brochure. I mean, that could really be it. Now it's a robust website with thought leadership baked into your blog. You've got a regular podcast. You might have a regular webinar series like we have. My goodness, your email, your distribution list to your customers or to your donors, prospects, and supporters. Those are all the things that you own and print materials, by the way. I mean, those are still very relevant to many organizations. And that's where your thought leadership needs to be housed. Those properties need to be invested in. They need to house your points of view, your credible thought leadership on your industry and topic. And then those own properties become the ingredients or the basis of which social campaigns come out, the very basis of which your earned media pitches come specifically from those properties. Um, and so
Yeah.
it really is important for any organization that wants to build true credibility over time to have invested in very, very uh, in own media properties that prove that they are expert in what they do.
I'll say real quick too, Alex, is that the organizations that are started by a lot of people in Gen Z nowadays look at owned media and they're very selective with some of the channels that they utilize. There are many people who believe that they can run an organization entirely off of a Facebook page. They don't even have a website anymore. They don't even have a newsletter. I encounter people all the time who want to launch a nonprofit organization just using the fundraising tools inside of Instagram. So it really is kind of this modern quandary, right? Where if you're a nonprofit, you want to be effective, right? And using all of these integrated methods, but it also can be really overwhelming for a new organization to think, oh my goodness, I have to have a newsletter, I have to have a mailer, I
Yeah,
have to have a
yeah,
Facebook, I have to have an Instagram, I have to have a
absolutely.
TikTok, now I have to start Snapchatting, right? It's like it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think there's an overwhelming nature to all of this, and I think we can play our job is to bring clarity to chaos. And I think there is some questions. I believe Amy's messaging me here. Um, let's go to the audience here. What questions do we have? Amy, can you share with us a question or two?
Sure. We have a question from Kevin Birch. The question is, in this new moment of extraordinary scrutiny from the federal government, what should nonprofits consider when communicating about their missions when those missions are no longer supported by the new administration? Great
Hmm.
question.
Kevin Birch, a colleague of mine from our Office Depot days. He's an amazing man. And of course, Kevin Birch is going to throw out a provocative question. That is
I
just
got
who
an answer.
Kevin Birch is. Yeah, and so Andre, you never shy away from a provocative question.
Yeah. So the question was, let me reframe the question the way I heard it, Kevin. How do you walk your messaging out to the public when it might be something that could be perceived as left leaning when there's a right leaning person as a governor or as in this particular case, president? By the way, that question also matters at times when it goes the other direction, right? So I feel like, Kevin, by the way, what is your topic? What are you passionate about? What is your cause? If you don't mind me asking, you put it in the chat, or you can just say it. Well, let's say that Kevin's topic is homelessness or the environment or whatever it might be. I find, Kevin, that there's always a way to message. Yeah. So again, you support technical inclusion in Africa. Listen, some of the greatest programs that I've ever seen in Africa came from George W. Bush, in my opinion, right? The programs that fought AIDS. So I do feel like it's really hard to find a cause that can't be messaged in a way that both left and right appreciate. And I think just addressing it head on, Alex, where we're not afraid to say out loud, "Hey, listen, I know some of you might get drawn into the political side of a topic like this, but just know we want to work with people from the left, the right." I think taking on head on the idea that there can be a challenge and then giving a door for people to work with that is something to consider.
No, I think that's really good. And I know that's a question in a lot of people's minds that we talk to every single day. Pendulums do swing. They do throughout American history, and they will again, but you want to thrive in the current moment because you have people to serve. We want to move over to
Alex, I
earned
think
media. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, just as something to build off of Andre real fast, is that as all of us come under more and more scrutiny, one of the things that I think is really really important is to stay true to our mission in our messaging, and to not take bait to attack adversaries that we don't agree with publicly on social media as a nonprofit. Also, to be very careful and remember that you cannot be political as a 501c3. You cannot endorse candidates as a 501c3. And I expect that nonprofits are going to be under hyper scrutiny for these kinds of things as time goes on. And we all just need to make sure that we have conversations internally with our teams and with our boards and our advisory boards and with our volunteers and with our interns, and have this become pervasive in our organization that, hey, everyone, we're going to stay true to the mission and make sure that we don't paint a big old target on ourselves to where someone who decides they don't like us starts to make a mess of trouble. And that's going to be really, really important moving forward as organizations walking that straight and narrow.
No, wise words. So kind of pivoting back here, we've talked about what owned media is, and that's really where you build your substance of thought leadership. Where earned media is really where you build sort of that third party validation. That's so important. It provides that credibility. Now, that used to mean very simply a press release, a press conference, hopefully getting in an article from a traditional source. That's still extremely valid, by the way. So we by no means want to say that's not relevant. It is to certain stakeholders, in fact, and certain people that are at that stage of leading organizations or senior level donors, that may mean an awful lot. But most likely, no matter what organization that you're leading right now, your people have moved on to many other niche areas where earned media doesn't just mean kind of news anymore. It is that, but it's really any kind of effort that you get expert third party validation. And that can be from, an influencer on LinkedIn that's referencing your research, or it could be from, an authoritative YouTube presence that's referencing you in their regular dialogue and spreading your message. It looks very, very different. And I would love for, and Amy, I don't know if you're if you'd able, I know you come from an agency background and communications for a privately held company, now communications for a large global publicly traded company. Can you just share a little bit of it? And it's because it's kind of fun to think what it looked like when you started your career and what you're kind of seeing now.
Oh, wow. It's if you add it all together, I've seen almost 40 years of the changing media landscape. But I mean, it still comes down to a story is a story, and good storytelling and news is news. I mean, it really depends on, kind of what your kind of your end goal is. I mean, I work currently, head up corporate communications for Ryder, trucking, logistics, warehousing, think supply chain, transportation. Not sexy by all means, strictly B2B, no consumer, vastly different than my time at Bacardi, which was drinks and fun and spirits, strictly B2C. But it comes down to where, there's times where, you know, an article in the Wall Street Journal is just as powerful as, a trade piece for us in reaching an article, or for online stickiness, a news release that I know is not going to get a lot of pickup. It's news internally, it's big news for my company, but we'll put out a press release or do something online or a blog just for stickiness. So it has more than a life of just some sort of news article that's out there. So, on the earned media side, luckily there's so many little tentacles now. It can work on so many levels.
I love the kind of premium on creativity. I'm seeing, where it almost seems like the news release becomes part of your own media in a way because it's living evergreen on your site. So it's that credibility thing that your investor community wants to see. And so it has value, but in almost a different kind of value as well.
Well, it's
And
it's a
then,
value.
yeah,
You started out earlier of kind of reaching your audience where they are. And for a publicly traded Fortune 500 company, my owned media is the Ryder newsroom and the Ryder blog or the Ryder social channels. So if you are an analyst, an investor, a shareholder, a financial media, it's like, you can come to our newsroom. So for me, sometimes putting up a news release that may not be, market moving material, but it paints a little picture of who we are that they may not know. That to me it can be sometimes golden and move the needle of, wow, I had no idea that Ryder, handled pretty much all of your e-commerce that you guys buy outside of Amazon. A lot of people don't know that, but if there is a news release up there, it may not have an actual breaking news thing about it, but it just tells kind of a more complete story. So that newsroom to me has become more and more valuable.
you know, it just struck me that is the ultimate versatility of you as B2C Bacardi, perhaps the sexiest brand on earth, to B2B Ryder, which is like the most practical and solid brand. It really shows that, in this world, you can learn a business and learn a customer base and apply fundamentals.
Yeah.
I want to say, Andre, when we talk about media, how important it is to invest in media worthy content. You have on so many issues invested in really cutting edge research data reports to illustrate the importance of a cause and to really use data reports as a hook to create a massive amount of awareness for your projects. You can share a little bit about the importance of, like, that's a lot of work and it's a big investment, but a huge return. Um, and a data report is just one kind of thing. It could be short form video series, it could be toolkits of kinds, but you've used data in PR in a very powerful way.
Yeah, Alex, just briefly, I always like to think about the idea that you want to take a lot of these media opportunities and multiply them against each other. For example, if you're going to do an event, you need to bring together your people, your donors, your clients, because some of you are nonprofit leaders, but all the others of you work in social responsibility. Some of you are corporate America leaders. If you're looking to bring together your group of stakeholders, let's say in person, how do you multiply the message outward to folks who are not there, bringing value to the folks that are there and bringing value to you as the person who brought everyone together? And then how do you make people feel special that are at your event, that they're at something valuable with someone valuable? Oftentimes, the way to do that is to use some kind of data report. I've got on my phone right here a report that we did. Let's see. This is just the opioid crisis in 2024 in Florida. What can we do about it? This is a report that we did because we were bringing our stakeholders together at the end of last year, and we wanted to be able to. Actually, this one's from 2020, but don't even worry about what it is or the topic. The idea is if you have breaking data, Alex, that's newsworthy, then you can invite traditional media. You can do a press conference. Never do an event unless you figure out some angle to invite traditional media. Because why not, right? So now you have traditional media, you have your stakeholders who love you, and then you can put all that on social media, put a backdrop up. So Alex, just again, using all of the three key drivers at once to multiply against each other. I can't resist saying this, and I know it will make some people mad because we can't not be political. So everybody repeat after me, wherever you are. I am not being political, and Andre is not being political. Okay, great. Now that you've said that, the master of this triangulation of media is President Donald Trump. Whether you like him or don't like him, think about how he constantly is starting some place in media, traditional media, ABC News, social media, his Twitter X account, or some kind of in-person event. He's the president now, so he can just show up on Air Force One someplace or have an event. But he never does anything that he doesn't do on all three of those at the same time. I think there's a lot of celebrities who do that really well in Hollywood as well. But I would just say to you, that's, Alex, what I would say in a future opportunity we could dive deeper in. But using data reports is the easiest way to get media there, local media especially. Then you're going to be able to triangulate the people there in person and social media at the same time.
Well, that's a great point. And whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, you have sort of license to be expert on something, right? And then that something enables you to go after to be the presenter or the unveiler of key data in that area, and it builds your thought leadership. So shared media, obviously, social media, we know all the platforms. You don't necessarily need to be on all platforms, but you need to be relevant on a few. One of the things that we really like about shared media, and that's social media plus things like testimonials and reviews that might exist from stakeholders on other properties, but anything that is sort of driving content and conversation through social channels, is that it's really a bellwether. If you want to decide as a company or as a nonprofit, do we want to invest in any paid media on something, or do we want to put forth efforts on pitching news media on something? The engagement that you might experience and see on social on a topic that you might float out there on something. And when you see that something has really a lot of traction on social, that's a low barrier. That's a free thing to do, and you can really get a sense of, okay, our audience it's really resonating in here. So we might then going to paid media, decide, hey, that makes sense. Let's prop up and boost the things that are already performing. We say it can really be used as a great sort of bellwether of like, hey, this resonates with our audience. Let's not use our paid dollars to kind of prop up lagging topics or lagging content. Let's take what's really working and get in front of a wider audience. We're not going to spend a lot of time on paid media. We know that it's critically important And if you're a small nonprofit, you may not do much or any paid media. But think about it, it's not just TV ads and radio and print, but we're also talking about kind of boosted content on social. So you might find that a post is really resonating on a certain property, and that can easily be turned into a paid campaign on other properties. So it's just investing in what's already working. We're about 36 minutes in, and we've hit on a lot of this stuff here. And might want to just kind of pause here before we kind of go into the second half. Any key questions in the queue that would be good for us to address at this time?
We have a question from Barry. He said, what suggestions do you have for using media to reach nonprofit leaders who are actively looking for tools that foster deeper connection and community engagement?
Good. Can you repeat that one more time? So this is coming from a nonprofit's perspective.
What suggestions do you have for using media to reach nonprofit leaders who are actively looking for tools that foster deeper connection and community engagement?
Mm, that that's interesting. So I take it this
LinkedIn, and actually, Alex, you're the master of that. I think
well,
LinkedIn. I
that's
think
very
LinkedIn
generous.
is one of the great tools to connect with nonprofit leaders or C-suite level leaders. But I would tell you, other than that, LinkedIn probably is a diminishing return. I remember some folks. There's a lot of younger people in particular who do not like LinkedIn at all. But for nonprofit leaders or for C-suite leaders, it's just a great place to connect.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to I'd like for us now. I'm going to do a little bit of a quick lightning round through some things. I want to make sure that Amy, we have plenty of time to get to kind of dig into some topics with you. So we've kind of talked about kind of the modern definition of your five areas of media communication, and them working together is really, have an integrated strategy is what holds it all together. And so we want to kind of talk about what are like integration such a fluffy word, like what are some examples of what it would mean to be integrated. And so let's just talk about a few here. So your owned media, your website, your blog, your podcast, and your earned media, your PR, you really want to think of your owned media being the fuel for your media relations. So take, for instance, you've got your CEO writes a blog on a key industry trend and topic, something hot, something that could really, that the trades in your industry are going to be absolutely interested in. So that blog post that's probably been pinned by Amy, right? Amy Fetterman. We all know that those CEO blog posts come from the communications folks. We all know that. But so that blog post becomes the fodder, the specific fodder that is pitched to trade publications. You get placements on those sites. Those placements, those articles, whether it's a bylined article from the CEO or if it's or a contributed quote to a news story, ideally links back to that blog. And then your own media, as you accumulate news wins, those news wins become more content on your site or on your blog, creating more thought leadership, but also really creating a lot of domain traction. So it's really an incredible cycle that you can create with really nice original owned content pitched out, covered, and directing back in. And so that's a really good sort of microcosm of how owned media and earned media can work together in a really smart way. Uh, Now let's talk about PR, earned media, and shared media. So we love this because, coming from a PR background, and Amy Fetterman, this might resonate with you. We've always gotten really excited about a PR win, right? You pitch a journalist, you've worked your butt off, you've been creative, you've been persistent, boom, you get the big segment or piece in a key publication, big PR win, and all that work, and you feel like sometimes it's a blip. It's a blip on the radar. It ran once or twice on local or national news, or it came and went on a key website, and the next week it's pretty much gone. There's so that is your that earned media is your greatest opportunity for validation and you want that to live on forever. And shared media is just an incredible way to create far more mileage, you know, out of a out of your best media, your earned media. So, one of the things that I've seen is, with all the tools that we have now, is when you get a great placement, you can really create really neat shared content out of that, whether it's pull quotes or factoids or breaking coverage into bite-sized segments that then can live and breathe on. And you can create, a massive amount of really engaging, credible content out of one PR win. So we would encourage you, as you have PR wins, to get very creative and really commit to getting as much value, mileage, and evergreen nature out of your PR. And I just want to hit on just a couple more here that I think are really, really maybe the most interesting here. Um,
Alex,
let's go. Yeah.
can I just tell a real quick story that I think might be important for some people to just kind of hear as they think about this?
Yes, sir.
My organization is an environmental nonprofit, and we had a farming program go viral in 2016. We were on Vice, Vox, Upworthy, Now This, NBC Nightly News, the Today Show, all kinds of things. We went viral, viral, viral. But because none of those channels were our own channels, we were riding on the coattails of all of this other media noise. And it was very hard for us to convert people to our newsletter and our social channels and all of those kinds of things. And it was something that we were in no way ready for. It just kind of took us by surprise. So, we had to get all of the, response to this and the tech side of things established after the fact. We were very reactionary. So I say this as a cautionary tale for our listeners today is that you never know what may happen or what hot topic or what project you do that could just get picked up and the internet magic happens and you go viral. So a lot of these things are considerations and conversations to have now internally with your tech team or your intern team or however you are, whatever size organization you are, to just be ready for these kinds of things. And it's definitely something that you don't want to be reactionary towards because you can really miss the boat. These channels I mentioned got millions of likes from our projects. And it was very hard to convert that over to ourselves because we weren't ready for it. So, important things to think about in this 21st century media world.
Absolutely. So much to think about. And with that, we're gonna pivot now to kind of our discussion with Amy. And Amy, we just thank you for being here. We could spend days with you, but we only have a short amount of time. And so I really wanted
Be
to
way
start
more
with,
fun than my current job. So
oh, no, 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 no.
spending
Look,
days.
all jobs have their wonderful things. And the thing with social media, people only see the good stuff, right? They
Yeah.
don't see the minutia with any of us. I want to start out, I want to kind of bounce around a little bit. I want to kind of the 800-pound gorilla. So you work for a large, global uh, for-profit company, AI. Everyone's thinking about how, the last 2 or 3 years, there is no conference, there is no presentation you've heard that hasn't included that. How is how is AI being used? How is it viewed in your space from a communicator standpoint?
Well, there's two buckets under that. Ryder is a publicly traded company. So if you look at our leadership and our IT, while ago, it was very terrifying, especially the open AI stuff. Like we're private, we're confidential, you can't put everything out there. So everybody on their own was doing Chat GPT, which is the first one, and all of a sudden it's now blocked. And we're like, wait, hold on. This can be so powerful and so useful. Just think, Ryder has 51,000 customers. We have 53,000 employees. The amount of data that we have that can be actionable, can be used for storytelling, could be used for sales, marketing, you name it. So we had to, realize and showcase how we can use AI to kind of do bigger, faster, stronger, better things in our world. So our IT team did create our own, it's called Rider GPT, because
Is
anything
that
you
right?
put out there, it's literally out there for the taking. So nothing we could do confidential, trade secret, earnings, financial. So created one in-house. But through, and mind you, the AI in the traditional sense of everyone talking about seems new, but your bots, your customer service, all that's been like a decade of stuff for a lot of companies. It's just transformed into what now everybody uses as AI. So a lot of companies had dabbled in those things and used it, but now over the past 6, 7, 8 months, we've had to do a lot of training as a corporate communications team and as an IT team to demystify and showcase the power of AI. And it's not to one day replace any of us in comms or in nonprofits. I mean, I look at it as something that can truly enhance my creativity. I mean, look at reporters, look at all of us. I have a tiny team. Reporters sometimes are filing 6, 7, 8 stories a day. What can we use to make our jobs more efficient, more effective? So leaving more time for me to be strategic or be creative or really be a thought leader and write. So, I think AI is a powerful tool. Obviously, once you get through all the ethical side of it and the confidentially side of it, I think it's here to stay, and how we harness it and use it and elevate it as a group of communications professionals will really help us in the future.
I appreciate that. And I think you're right in that once you get past the fear of replacement, it's like, hey, how can I be freed up to do those things I actually love?
Mhm.
And where relationship building with reporters or thought leaders is now at a premium, you got a little more time to invest in those relationships and pursuing those while AI is doing those things in a couple of seconds that might have taken a couple hours before.
Yeah, and recent example is I like to do a lot of brainstorms with my team and marketing and even other groups, even some salespeople, or just even outside of my world, because I think different perspectives really bring a lot. And we could spend an hour brainstorming a theme and trying to get a tagline or a branding, where I have personally been just plugging things in my thoughts and a lot of prompts and come to a brainstorm with the top 5 that I think meets the mission. And it completely takes a lot of wasted time of trying to get to those top 5 when you whittle it down from 20. I've already done that work in a very fast time frame.
I want to kind of go off script because this is interesting. I think because whether you're communicating on behalf of a company or on behalf of a cause and a nonprofit, you had that challenge of trying to source what are the most compelling stories that are happening. We talk to our constituents, to our people internally, or is it just us as communicators? So you really try to dig deep into the the guts of Ryder to talk with employees from different segments, like what's going on, what do we want to say? Because there's a million things you can say as an organization. So you choose some things that you're going to
Yeah.
say we're all
Well,
about.
it comes back to how you started this whole thing of integrated communications. My team and I speak on behalf of, whether it's internal or external, a corporate voice or a corporate entity or department. So it can't just be put my blinders on and this is what I think we have to do. I mean, I have to dig deep into, while I don't have external customers per se, my customers are what we'll call verticals. We're in oil and gas, construction, CPG, e-commerce, retail, health. So, those can't go out with one message if it's going to be detrimental to another vertical or another piece of business. So I try to be as inclusive in our messaging, because everyone has to say the same thing out there, whether you're internal or external in one department or fleet versus, warehousing. So I
Well, that's
do.
really interesting.
And I have a small team. I mean, I think I said earlier, we have 53,000 employees, and my immediate direct reports, there's 7 of us.
We're going to advocate for some new headcount for you. But thankfully there's AI now, so that's a little bit of breathing room. That's interesting though, because I think that leads me to think about kind of a license to play. So I would think writer, obviously, like anything in the logistics world, your point of view, your quote, it is meaningful there. But you really have established credibility in all these different kind of industry categories where you play in certain ways. Talk a little bit about, because I think everyone that's listening today is, speaks or writes or communicates on behalf of an entity, and they need to be able to build credibility in different areas where their voice would matter and would have some license. Talk a little bit about that and how you've established writers' credibility in these different
Well,
segments.
this was a huge, I still consider it a huge opportunity alongside a challenge, but in my particular case now, Ryder, everyone thinks they know us. And it's a great brand name recognition because we have 260,000 trucks out on the road. It is the most visible part of our business, our trucks on the road, which is the smallest part of our business, even though it's the most visible. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I rented a truck to move my kid to college." Well, you might be confusing us with somebody else. We haven't done a consumer rental in 29 years. So it's an everyday challenge that my team and I have to actually get the messaging out of and branding and brand support of who we are. But on the flip side, we have 3 business units, which are very different. One, the visible one where I said trucks on the road, that's our fleet where you can rent and lease as a business those trucks. Another one is an entire dedicated division. So those are where it looks like there's like 5. It looks like a CVS truck, branded like a CVS truck, but it's a Ryder truck and a Ryder employee that does work for CVS. And then the other side is supply chain. So we have 100 million square feet of warehousing. We do e-commerce for a lot of the brands that you love. So if you are a fleet customer, you really have no need for a dedicated driver. You don't have a need for warehousing. So we have 3 different buckets, and to tell those to 3 different audiences by still keeping the same kind of brand promise on our vision and mission, it's an everyday challenge, which I tell my team, it's like job security because it's so different, but it is the challenge. And I mean, Ryder's not unique in that sense. I'm sure there's dozens on the call that have that same thing, but it's a purposeful, strategic, everyday, everybody needs to know what the mission is, what your end goal is, and every day creating strategies and tactics to deliver on that.
Oh, and I can appreciate that. Again, we're gonna maybe this will be our last. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to bring you on later in the summer and the fall because there's so much more to talk about. But one of the things we do at Mission Impact, whether we're working with an NGO, a nonprofit, or we're working with a business, it's always about who is that target constituency that you need to connect with or connect with more to propel your organization forward. On a nonprofit side, it might be a certain segment of donors where a segment of wealth that they need to tap into. So we need to study and help them truly understand the nuances of that audience. And same with the for-profit business of like, hey, there's a whole customer segment that we're not relevant to now, but we should be. We need to understand. And so talk a little bit about understanding your core audience because you're B2B, so you have buyers in these different areas, and they probably have different kind of buyer profiles. How do you get into the head of your core audience or your core constituency? And as a communicator, how do you tackle that?
One of the topics that was up earlier is data. Data rules at my company. We have an entire team of, I call them data farmers. We have them outside of Nashville, Tennessee. But as I said, there's a lot of data, and numbers are real to reporters or to any other audience. So we try not to do anything without having some sort of like what's the news nugget? And a lot of time it is that, a solution we have, a technology solution saves, 37% of wasted time on calls or lost packaging or labor waiting. So we do it just not because it's interesting to Ryder. And obviously, if we ever deal with the media, they want to know what's interesting, what's the news for their reader, so which could be our customer. So a lot of it comes with the factoids and the data side, but truly what's the nugget of news? I mean, I can put out stuff all day long and it makes, Ryder feel great, but it's just wasted energy and wasted time because it's not really going to meet that procurement leader or that CEO who knows that we're just wasting a lot of time, money, and effort of doing this ourselves versus outsourcing it to someone. So,
You got a big job, my friend.
but it's
I
truly
can't
knowing your
imagine.
audience. It doesn't matter if you're
Yeah,
B2B or B2C or
no,
nonprofit, and
you're
I'll
right.
give my if I can, my nonprofit plug, because up on here is I am the CEO of a charitable foundation. You know who you're going after for a request or call to action, donor support. Really know what their mission is, what their focus is, and get to know them as to why it would be a fit for your organization. I get a lot of calls that are just, amazing organizations, but a water project in Ecuador is not relevant to a US based transportation company. So kind of do your homework, like we're doing our homework as corporate communicators. Do your homework on the nonprofit side to really dig down of why this would be a fit.
Well, Amy, there's just not enough time. So if we could, put you on the spot in front of, 7,500 people, could we have you back?
I would love to be back.
There's so many
Thank
things I
you for
want
the
to tackle.
opportunity.
Well, there's some things I love to tackle, especially on the foundation side, which kind of wasn't the main topic, but there's just we'd love to get your perspective on the cause and on the area of cause and social kind of pursuits. But
Of course.
we always pride ourselves on never being that group that 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 doesn't adhere to people's time because we know everyone is living on that Zoom block schedule. We kind of want to just kind of say for here, Andre, love to just kind of kick it over to you to close us out. I know we're going to be sending out a pretty robust leave behind for everybody here because we could only cover a fraction, but if you would close us out.
Yeah, thank you guys again for joining us. And again, thank you for the work that you do in the impact sector, whether you work for a nonprofit, you run a nonprofit, you're in social responsibility, philanthropy, you volunteer. Thank you for what you do. Your work is needed more than ever. And we want to help you take your organization and your work to the next level, whether it's a nonprofit, a for profit, or you work in government. We want to help you. Reach out to us. We do consulting at a very high level for a handful of groups looking to message, market, grow their organization, do all kinds of things. Reach out to us. We want to help you be successful. And we know that sometimes it takes just that little push to get to a place where you are above where you are right now and you're meeting your goals. So we want to reach out to you, and we will reach out to you and give you opportunities to connect with us one-on-one. Again, I'll just kick it around and say thank you to Amy, Alex, Clayton, Tamara, everyone on our team, and keep doing what you're doing. Alex, I'll give you the last word. It's 12.
Yeah, well, the impact sector means that you're making this world better, but we have to make ourselves better, keep investing in ourselves in order to do that at a higher level. You'll be getting an email later today with the full playback, so you can go back and also a PDF that'll kind of break down on a more granular level some of the principles that we coach on and that we teach on and that we support organizations on. And we'd love to take that further with you. With that said, it is exactly 12 p.m. Eastern. Committed to ending this on time. We love you guys. If the specific new topics you'd like to hear about this summer or fall, just shoot us a note. We'd love to create a program that would add value to you. And with that, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much, everyone.